back. Now, Linda, before the break, you were saying that you find it that sometimes people think as a lesbian woman that you're always trying to convert a straight woman. Do you not find that offensive?
Sometimes I find it offensive because really what you're saying is that as soon as I meet you, I'm attracted to you just because you're a woman. And relationships and attraction is so much more than that. And so I think it's more about you than it is about me. And I think a lot of times women project that onto me. And it's so unfair because, I mean, I'm so much more than sex. And I think that if people took the time to just meet me as a person, that we would probably get to know each other differently instead of looking at me with that big gay, label on my forehead. And I think maybe sometimes it has to do with my dress. And so you're already put me in that box and in that stereotype. And that's unfortunate because really I wear these clothes because I'm fascinated with bow ties. I'm comfortable in what I wear, but it doesn't say anything about really what my sexual preferences and likes and dislikes are.
Now, so many Bermudians, both men and women, have emigrated, particularly to the UK, so that they can be who they are in comfort. Why didn't you leave? Or was it ever an option?
It's always been an option. My girlfriends of late have been from overseas, and so it's always an option there for me. And it's something that I seriously explored last year when we did the first interview 2 years ago. But the reality is, why should I be chased out of my own country in order to live? And for me, I don't want to exist in Bermuda. I did that for 30 years. But once I came out, I want to live. And so it's uncomfortable for you, it's uncomfortable for the next person, but that's your truth. It's not uncomfortable for me anymore, and I'm going to live my truth.
Now, there's someone out there watching this show this very minute, and they're contemplating coming out, they're battling with it. What would you say to them?
I think that the battle has to be within first, and I think once you're comfortable with who you are, then you'll start to see in little pockets that there are people who already knew who you were. A lot of times people come out and they think everybody's going to be shocked. And then you meet somebody who's like, well, what took you so long? We're waiting for you to come out all this time, right? But I think that there are a lot of things that you have to reconcile within yourself first. And I think that's important to do, because if you don't do that, the minute you get opposition, the minute you get resistance and negativity and hate speech,
you're going to run or
you're going to run.
Revert.
And you're going to revert right back into that same closet door. I say when you're ready to come out, kick the door and the hinges right off. So there's no going back.
Now, I'm sure you have friends who are still in the closet. What is the prevailing reason for why? I mean, there are so many different gay men and women on the island who have come out and they're okay. Why do you think people are still, some of them fairly entrenched in the back of the closet?
I think it's a lot. I mean, you're taking a risk in terms of your family connections. You're taking a risk. And if you're not ready for that, then you're going to stay in the closet. If you have people in your family that have a strong religious base, they're not going to encourage you to take that step out. And their speech that you've heard probably all your life is certainly not going to encourage you. I think also on the employment front, we like to think that with the change of the Act against discrimination against sexual orientation, that a lot of employers are openly embracing it, but it's just not true. I mean, as you know, from my union capacity, I see it all the time. I mean, you would think that I'm absolutely the only gay person in the union, and that is so not true. But it's others who feel compelled to stay in the closet because they're restricted for upward mobility, because they feel that the person who's going to judge them might be from a strong religious base or just homophobic.
Now, let's talk about the same-sex symposium. It was standing room only. And for every person that was for same-sex marriage, there were two against it. What were some of the feelings that you were going through when you were listening, particularly on the second day when there seemed to be tons and tons of Bible verses, almost every other person that spoke? Your feedback on that day, do you remember?
I've heard them before. There was no new verse that came out. But again, we only pick out part of the verses, right?
Do you have that one verse that you think, oh, I'm hearing that again? Is there one verse that...
Sure, in the New Testament, men shouldn't lie with men. They use that as their Jesus saying that homosexuality was wrong. Of course, that's all debatable, but I have no interest in the religious argument on this topic, right? Because I am a Christian. I believe in the freedom of religion. And I believe that the religious entities have a right to determine what they want within their walls. That is not my argument against this. My argument is human rights. And for me, when you're trying to, as a government, make a decision on a topic that affects your people, then it has to be about civil rights and not about religious rights. And that's why we have separation of church and state. And so I'm okay with that. I don't want to force any church to marry me, but I don't want the church tell the government that I can't go to the public register and get married. I don't want the church say that I can't get married in somebody's backyard or in those churches who are willing to marry me. And so for me, I know that there's this whole debate about the term marriage and civil unions. I want to have the rights of any taxpayer. And for me, the rights of any taxpayer is the right to marry who they wish to marry.
Do you think that one day you'll be able to have that in Bermuda?
I think it's inevitable. It's inevitable. Bermuda doesn't exist on its own. We like to think so, but we don't exist on our own. And I think that the generation that's coming up, and thankfully, are not so they're not so afraid as we were. And I think that they're coming to their realizations a lot earlier. They're finally catching up with science that says that people make these decisions at quite an early age. And as I said in my first interview, I didn't wake up one day in my 20s and decide to be gay. I knew from a very young age. But what kept me in the closet is not the knowledge that I was gay, but the impact on saying that out loud. That's what kept me in the closet for a long time. But there was no doubt. And I think when people come out, generally the mothers will be the first to say, well, yeah, I knew.
Which leads me to my next question, but I only want you to answer whichever answer, genetic or learned behavior.
Genetic. I can't learn this. And then who would I have learned it from, right? That first time that I had any sexual feelings, it was for a female. I didn't see it.
And you said you were about 5, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just felt it, and it got greater and greater and greater. But I fought it because I knew what it would mean, because of the things that I heard within my household, because of the things that I heard within my family and outside. So I pushed all of those feelings back, which is shameful, because I didn't get the whole experience of growing with my sexuality.
Your true self,
yeah.
Right.
And that's what I don't think people realize what they're taking away from children, because you can't give me that back. You know, I can never go back and get that. And so for me, the option of some people, I contemplated suicide, I contemplated drugs and alcohol or whatever, but I'm kind of anal, so I always like to have control of my faculties, so that never worked out. But for others, it doesn't. And then we get them in positions where they are these different people, and they commit crimes, they get involved with drug addiction and all these other sort of things. And then we have these social inquiry reports, and when we really dig down deep, then we see, aha, there's the problem.
Do you ever see a person who is in the closet and just say, you see that sadness and say it's such a shame that you have to live this way?
All the time. I mean, one thing that your show did, and me publicly coming out, is that it's made me a resource for parents and friends and other people who, you know, hit me up all the time and say, listen, I just want to talk to you because I have a child, I have a niece, I have a cousin, or I have a brother, and I just want to know, how do I deal with it? But when you look at the person, it's so incredibly freeing. It's just amazingly freeing. Like I'm generally very happy and easygoing. Not to say that I'm happy all the time, because nobody likes those people, but generally, like, my spirit is very free.
You're in a good place.
I'm in a very good place. And I will never apologize for being in that good place, regardless of how it affects you. You live your truth. All I'm asking is to live my truth. And so when we encourage people to live their truth, imagine how much better the world is going to be.
Do you think that the same-sex symposium was put on with a purpose, or do you think it was put on to placate?
I don't know what the government's purposes are, you know. But what I know is that you cannot continue to discriminate against any sector of your country. And anything that moves you away from that type of discrimination has to be a good thing. I get their ulterior motives, right? Politics are surrounded by those type of things. But I just look at the individuals, and I'm saying we're giving individuals the options that everybody else has. You know, I said it before, I said again, I'm a hopeless romantic. I want to get married. You know, I want that whole feeling of euphoria and fear and everything that comes with it. But you could
go overseas and get married, some would say.
Well, why should I go overseas and drag my whole family there when I could get married in front of not only my family, but my friends, my community, my colleagues, that people that have invested in my happiness? Why shouldn't I give them that same joy of seeing me ultimately happy?
Now, for some, they may think that you're just Linda, the poster child, but there's a whole nother side to who you are. You're very strong, and you have a very high position in the union. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, currently I'm the second vice president for the BPSU, and I take that role very seriously. And that's what drives me to fight for my union rights. I'm on the front every day in the trenches fighting for workers' rights in this country. I'm very passionate about it. And I believe that the workers have built this country to where it is. They are valuable, and despite the recession, they are still going over and above to perform in their work capacity. And so as a union, we are mandated to ensure that our members continue to work, continue to be employed, and that the work environment stays productive. So if I do that every day for workers, every day, then why shouldn't I fight for what I consider a basic right? And so I'm happy to go out there on the front line whenever I go out in my union capacity. You know, our members see me with the bow ties, and the reception has been very good, because they know that if I'm as passionate about fighting for their rights as I am as passionate about fighting for my own rights, they respect that. You know, regardless of how they might feel from a religious aspect, they respect it. And really, that's all I can ask for.
So let's fast forward 50 years. What indelible mark would you hope that you have left in this community?
50 years? I want people to, when they hear my name, remember me and say, you know what? I appreciated and I respected her passion and her love for people and their right to live unapologetically. If that could be anywhere in my obituary, well, I'm going to write it myself so that nobody forgets it. If people believe that about me, then I know that I have accomplished everything that I was purposed here, particularly for my niece and nephew. If I can create that environment for them, then I feel that I've accomplished everything.
Well, Linda, we're coming to the end of the episode, but again, I want to thank you because you are where it all started. You helped me make my launch, and you trusted me to share your journey with me. So I owe you a very special thank you.
And I owe you a thank you, because I tell you, from this interviews, my life definitely did change. And also, you know, people don't believe this, but I'm actually a shy person. But that forced me to be out there and take up the mantle and say, you know what? This is my purpose, and I got to live my truth. So I definitely thank you for it. And it's good to see you evolve. You look absolutely fabulous. I'm not trying to pick you up, but you look absolutely fabulous. And so I just want to, you know, tell you that. And,
thank you.
And I am proud of everything that you accomplished. I'm looking forward to greater things.
Thank you. And there you have it, folks. Another edition of Straight Talk. I'm your host, Carla Zuill, here at the Paradise Lounge, and we'll see you next week.